Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another casual best of 3 game. So today I'm going to be piloting a RustTyranomon Piercer deck versus a jank UltraforceVeedramon deck that my friend randomly found online. Alright, going into game 1, I start by flipping over a Tanamon, and then Digivolve Tanamon into Tentomon, drawing a card, and Digivolving Tentomon into Woodmon, drawing a card, and passing the turn over to my opponent. He starts off by drawing, and then flipping over his Digitama into a Demi-Vmon. Then he Digivolves Demi-Vmon into Vmon, draws a card for Digivolving. Then Digivolves Demi-Vmon into Veedramon. And lastly, he ends the turn by playing Avimon and passing it to me. So I move Woodmon out of my raising area and Digivolve them into Metal Tyranomon, checking my inheritable abilities to see what I have. And then I Digivolve my Metal Tyranomon into RustTyranomon and pass the turn over to my opponent after drawing. Now he draws, moves his Veedramon out of the raising area, and then Digivolves his Veedramon into Zudomon to remove the bottom two inheritables from my Digimon, so I end up losing Tentomon and Tanamon's abilities. Then he attacks my security with Vmon. It is a RustTyranomon, so we both trade. Then he plays another Vmon and passes the turn over to me. I flip over another Tanamon, Digivolve it into Agumon, drawing into a Taiga, and then I play the Taiga that I just drew into, giving my Tyrannomon's Piercing, and it gives my RustTyranomon the ability to attack into my opponent's active Digimon, so I attack his Zudomon, giving Piercing, so I also hit his security, which is another Zudomon, and then using the ability of Tyrannomon to rest his Vmon. And then I end the turn by Digivolving into Tyrannomon. Now my opponent's turn, he draws for his turn, flips over another Demi-Vmon, and then ends up playing a Rena. With Rena, he checks the top 3 cards, looking for a card with V in its name. Unfortunately, he whiffs, so they all go to the bottom. And then that passes the turn over to me. So I move my Tyrannomon out of my raising area. I attack his Vmon with my RustTyranomon, again with Piercing, so security check. Unfortunately, I hit a UltraforceVeedramon, so we end up trading because I don't have the buffs from my Tanamon. And then I end up playing a Mimi and passing the turn to my opponent. He draws for his turn, and then he drops down a Grizzlymon, and with that, he passes the turn to me. I flip over Digimon from my raising area, Digivolve into Okawamon, and then Digivolve into Tentomon off of Argamon, and then Digivolve into Grand Kawagamon. And passing the turn over to my opponent, I understand that I could have used Mimi to put Tentomon out early, but I chose not to. So he drew for the turn, and then he just straight up Digivolves it into Arrow Veedramon off of his Grizzlymon, and then he makes the unfortunate decision to attack my security. He ends up winning the security check, but knowing that I have Piercing, it was probably a mistake to attack, because he knows that I could just attack into him. So he ends up playing a Wolfclaw to split up playing the Grizzlymon from the Digivolution source, and then passes the turn to me. So I end up starting my turn by moving Tentomon out of my raising area, flip over a Tanamon, thanks to Mimi, but I forgot to rest Mimi. And then I attack with Grand Kawagamon into his Arrow Veedramon, gaining a memory off of Okawamon's skill, and then checking all of the buffs to make sure I can win the security check. I flip over a Grand Cross Freeze. It ends up doing nothing because all of my Digimon have sources. And then I Digivolve into Tyrannomon, drawing a card. Flipping over the top 3, I end up hitting an Okawamon and a Mimi, so the rest go to the bottom, but the others go into my hand. And then I Digivolve into Okawamon from the one that I drew, and then I draw for Digivolving, and I end up Digivolving Okawamon into Grand Kawagamon again, passing the turn over to my opponent after drawing the Digivolution. So he starts and draws, he plays a Veedramon, and then passes the turn over to me. So I start by Digivolving into an Agumon, then Digivolving Agumon into Kabuterimon, then playing Flower Cannon, choosing to rest his Veedramon so that way a Grand Kawagamon can attack it. Does the security check for piercing. I end up winning. Then I attack his security. Flips over a Hearts attack. It does nothing, so it goes to the trash. And then I use Mimi's ability to move out Kabuterimon. I attack, and then he blocks and we trade. So then I play Argomon, Digivolve it into another Kabuterimon, and then play Palmon to then pass the turn over to my opponent after I whiff on the searches. So he ends up drawing a card, Digivolves Demivemon into Gabumon, and Gabumon into Veedramon, draws a card, and then passes the turn to me. And then I just swing with Grand Kawagamon for the game. My opponent starts. He flips over a Demivemon for his Digitama, and then Digivolves it into Gabumon, drawing a card. Then he plays Taichi V-Tamer and passes the turn over to me. I draw. I flip over a Tanamon, Digivolve Tanamon into Agumon, draw a card for Digivolving, then Digivolve into Tyranomon, and then Digivolve again into Jagamon. My opponent draws, and he moves Gabumon out of the raising area. I know I already forgot to draw off of Digivolving off of Jagamon. That'll be fixed in just a moment. Here's the fix. And the game resumes. My opponent attacks my security with his Gabumon, ends up losing the security check to Kabuterimon, and then he throws down a Zudomon and passes the turn over to me. I draw, move Jagamon out of the raising area. I play Taiga, and then I Digivolve right into RustTyranomon. I understand that I could have attacked to try to get it, but I figured it was more worthwhile me not taking that risk. So he ends up drawing his for the turn, playing his Digitama, and then Digivolving right into UltraforceVeedramon. And then he attacks my security with UltraforceVeedramon. Security check. It's Palmon. I end up losing. Next, he ends up using Taichi V-Tamer's ability to draw a card, and then the ability of UltraforceVeedramon allows him to stand up when a blue Tamer is rested, so that's pretty good. And then he attacks my security again, reveals an Izzy. Izzy comes onto my field because of its security ability, just lets me play it for free. And then he plays a Veedramon and passes the turn over to me. So I draw, I flip over another Tanamon from my raising area, use Izzy's ability to look at the top card of my deck. If it's a Digimon, add it to my hand. It's a Tentamon, use it to Digivolve immediately. Then have RustTyranomon attack his UltraforceVeedramon, flipping over a Metal Garurumon. With all of my buffs, I end up winning that security check. And then I Digivolve into Tyranomon, drawing another card, then Digivolve into Metal Tyranomon, drawing another card, playing a Woodmon to pass the turn over to my opponent. He starts by drawing. He rests his Taichi to draw another card, digivolves Veedramon into Veedramon, drawing another card. Rust his Veedramon, checks security. It's a Kabuterimon. I end up losing that security check. Next, he plays a Wolf Claw to separate his Veedramon and Veedramon, and then passes the turn to me. So I start off the turn by drawing, moving Metal Tyranomon out, using Izzy to check the top card. It's a Mimi, so I whiff, it goes to the bottom, and then Digivolve Metal Tyranomon into another RustTyranomon, drawing a card for Digivolving. Having RustTyranomon attack Veedramon, piercing damage, security check, I win. Having my other RustTyranomon attack into his Veedramon, doing a security check, I end up winning the security check. Stand up for double attack, and then playing an Argomon and passing the turn over to my opponent. My opponent digivolves it into Veemon off of his Demi-Veemon. He ends up playing Veedramon and passes the turn over to me. Flip over Argomon, digivolve Argomon into Agumon, draw a card, use Izzy's skill to reveal the top card. It's an option, so I whiff. I have RustTyranomon attack into Veedramon and then piercing damage. And then I have my other RustTyranomon attack for game. As always, tell me your thoughts about the game in the comments below. Feel free to like and subscribe for more content, and I will see you in the next video.